Yor Jang, the 14-year-old Roosevelt High School student who was shot in broad daylight driving in a car with his sister. My thoughts and prayers are with his family, his friends, his classmates, and his community. But thoughts and prayers alone are not enough. We lose 33,000 people to gun violence every single year in America. And too many families, and I have met a good number of them, have been ripped apart by senseless gun violence. We need to bring people together to reform our laws, to keep guns from falling into the wrong hands, and to keep families safe. And everything that we've talked about for comprehensive background checks and doing more on mental health and all that we think will help save lives is supported by a big majority of Americans and a big majority of gun owners. So let's vote for common sense reform. And that has nothing to do with taking away any lawful gun owners' rights under the Second Amendment. That is a false choice. So let's vote for safe communities, and then we're going to vote. We're going to vote for helping the middle class thrive, because when the middle class thrives, America thrives. We're going to make the biggest investment in new jobs, infrastructure jobs, advanced manufacturing jobs, technology, small businesses, and clean energy. We need to make America the 21st century clean energy superpower. And you know, Iowa, you're leading the way. You already get a third of your electricity from clean energy, mostly wind. So it's time to vote for good jobs with rising incomes. And I'll tell you, the way you grow the economy is from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down. And every kid deserves good schools with good teachers in every zip code. We're going to partner with school districts and educators. And yes, we're going to make college more affordable. I am very proud of the campaign that Bernie Sanders and I ran. It was a campaign of ideas, not insults. And when it was over, we got together and came up with a plan to make public colleges and universities tuition free for families making less than $125,000 a year. And debt-free for everybody else. So yeah, if you're over that amount, you got to pay something, but not so much that you go into debt, because I want us to think about college as an investment in our young people and their futures. And we're going to make it easier for you to refinance and pay back your student debt, to get out from under that burden. So, as I say, we've been really focused on putting together an agenda that will actually lift incomes, create more jobs, make college affordable. And Donald Trump, what he's done is to say that let's cut trillions of dollars in taxes on millionaires and billionaires and corporations. It's called trickle-down economics, but his version is trickle-down on steroids. These would be the biggest tax cuts in the history of America. Not for you, but for people like him and his family. Now, I tell you what, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. I've said I will not raise taxes on anyone whose income is below $250,000, because I don't think that's fair. But it is pretty ironic to have Trump talking about this, because we now know he didn't pay a dime in federal income tax for years. Why? Because back in the 90s, he lost $1 billion in a single year. During the debate, when I pointed that out, he said, yeah, that makes him smart. I don't know how smart you have to be to lose $1 billion in a single year. of genius loses money running a casino, right? But it's serious because it means he's contributed zero. Zero for our military, zero for our veterans, zero for the Pell Grants that help so many kids afford to go to college, zero for highways. He's done nothing to support the country that he spends all of his time downgrading. And lest you think that he only has been doing this since Barack Obama was president or he started running against me, as I pointed out in the debate, back in 1987, he took out a $100,000 ad in the New York Times to criticize President Reagan. He said, "Our leaders are the laughing stock of the world." Honestly, a man who has been blessed because he is an American and able to inherit his father's business and get a $14 million loan to get started in his own business and have his father come in and bail him out, and he denigrates everybody else. I find that a deeply troubling trait, and it's one of the many that make him unfit to be president and commander-in-chief. So, I gotta tell you, we can't do anything that we are planning to do. We can't get that big list up on the White House and begin to check things off unless you vote. And here in Polk County, it couldn't be easier. You can vote tomorrow at any of the Polk County satellite sites. We have organizers who will give you details on the way out the door, or you can go online to iwillvote.com to confirm your polling place. And if you have time in the next 10 days, starting tomorrow, please volunteer. Go to hillaryclinton.com, sign up to help us make phone calls, knock on doors, pull out voters. You know, people say, well, this is an election about change, and I agree it is. Every election is about change. The one thing we know is that on January 20th, America is going to have a new president. So things will change. The real question is, what kind of change are we going to have? And I just don't think most people want the kind of change Donald Trump is offering, right? Requiring every school in America to allow guns in classrooms? Going back to the days when insurance companies could discriminate against you for a pre-existing condition? Letting Wall Street write the rules that govern them? Deporting 11 million people with the biggest police action in the history of America? Police going door to door? Abandoning our allies? Ending marriage equality? Ripping away women's rights? Doing nothing for people with disabilities? Doing nothing to help make sure that people can vote in America the way they should be? And allowing more countries to get nuclear weapons. Now that's change, all right, but that is not the kind of change we need. My vision is different. I actually believe if we pull ourselves together, America's best days are still ahead of us. So I want us to be a country with good, high-paying jobs in every community, where college is affordable, where we've got immigrants who pay taxes have a path to citizenship, where we respect each other, where we work with the world to defeat terrorism and stop the spread of nuclear weapons. And so for me, change is coming. The choice is, what kind of country do we want to be? I want us to build a stronger and fairer America. I want us to have the kind of future that our children and grandchildren deserve. So I hope you will get out and vote. I hope you will bring your friends and your family to vote. I hope you will contribute to that future we're going to build today. And let's prove once and for all that love trumps hate. Thank you. And
graded them not on the content of their character, but on a scale of 1 to 10. You can't, with a straight face, say you respect women and then support somebody who brags about assaulting women. You don't have to be a husband, you don't have to be a father to stand up for women, you just have to be a decent person. And I will tell you, that I know everybody's been noticing Michelle's been pretty passionate lately. It's not only is this something Michelle's experienced herself, but this is something that, as parents, when we think about our daughters and listen to that kind of behavior, we say that is not the kind of example we set for our children, for our boys, for our girls. Obviously, I could go on and on about why I don't think that the Republican nominee is fit to hold this office. Because he does it himself every time he talks, or tweets, or gets caught on tape. But I will say this, in my 2 campaigns for president, I had very strong disagreements with John McCain. I had very strong disagreements with Mitt Romney. I believed I had better ideas than them for how to lead the country. But I was never concerned about the fate of our democracy if they had won. And Michelle feels the same way. Michelle doesn't love politics. She wasn't thrilled about me going into politics. But she is working as hard as she can because she understands there's something more fundamental at stake than this particular election. And that is, who are we as a country? What is our character? What values do we stand for? We cannot teach our children to treat women as objects. We want to teach our kids to treat everybody as full and equal citizens, capable of doing anything. We can't teach our children to vilify immigrants or people with disabilities or Americans who practice a different faith. We've got to teach them that everybody counts and everybody matters and everybody's deserving of respect, and we are stronger together than we could ever be apart. We shouldn't let our kids think that politics is about pitching a new hotel or a new golf course or a TV contract. It's about working on behalf of the common good and promoting opportunity and justice. That's what Hillary believes. That's why she has to win this election. It's at the heart of the Methodist creed her mom instilled in her. Do all the good you can for all the people you can in all the ways that you can, as long as ever you can. That's why she's in this. She believes, like I believe, that we can summon what's best in each of us, that we can make this country better for all of us. She believes that together we can do big things that we could never do on our own. And isn't that what America's all about? We're a country like no other in the world. We're a country that was founded for the sake of an idea. We hold these truths to be self-evident. That all men are created equal. That we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. That you don't have to be born into wealth or privilege. You don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to have a certain last name. That if you are willing to give of yourself, you can move the wheel of history. That's what drove patriots to choose revolution over tyranny. That's what led GIs to liberate a continent. That's what gave women the courage to reach out for that ballot. That's what led marchers to cross a bridge in Selma. That's what led workers to organize for better wages. That is what has made America exceptional. That is why America's great. And all that progress, all that work hasn't happened because some person from on high did it for us. It's because we did it together. It's because ordinary people worked hard. It's because immigrant families like Debbie's parents worked the night shift. They saved and scrimped. They sacrificed. They got involved. They spoke out. And even though sometimes that progress is slow in coming, sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's frustrating, ultimately, that process of self-government moved us forward. And that's what Hillary understands. That's what she understands. She knows that in a democracy that's big and diverse like this, you can't be demonizing each other all the time. You can't just make stuff up about each other. You can't spend all your time calling each other names. You've got to compromise sometimes, even when you're right. She understands nobody's perfect, not even presidents. But we should try our best to conduct ourselves with just some basic homespun values: honesty, decency, generosity, big-heartedness, fairness, the things we try to teach our kids, the things most of us should have learned in kindergarten. That's what we should expect. Look, I am here to tell you this, and I'm just going to be honest with you. I understand that this is a polarized country right now. I understand that everybody is just rooting for their side. I understand that so much of the news during this election cycle has been discouraging or cynical. And these days, because of the nature of the internet and social media, sometimes it's hard to sort out what's true and what's false. I know that so many people can feel cynical sometimes about our prospects for progress and change, and sometimes it feels like Washington's very far away and very distant. But I'm urging all of you, and I mean this. The choice in this election is really clear. You've got one person who is really, really well qualified, who really, really cares about doing the right thing, who is committed to sustaining the work that you and I have done together over these last 8 years. I believe Hillary Clinton will be a great president. I believe she will move this country forward. But she's going to need our help. It's not enough just to elect her and then have a Republican Congress that is already talking about not being willing to cooperate with her on anything. When they control the Senate and the House, right now they can't even pass their own stuff. And all we're going to see is more gridlock and more obstruction and more threats to shut down the government and more threats to wreck the economy. They've given up on their own nominee, but they're promising more unprecedented dysfunction in Washington. They didn't work with me when I took office, even when we were in the middle of an unprecedented crisis. They sure will not work with Hillary now. Some of them are already promising years of investigations and hearings and obstruction and repeal votes. They're already saying they may not appoint a ninth Supreme Court justice at all. They boast about their refusal to compromise as if that in and of itself is an accomplishment. And all it does is prevent what everybody's looking for, which is fixing up our roads and putting people to work and cleaning up our environment and fixing immigration, educating our kids, keeping them safe. You know, if you think that the slogan, vote for us because we're going to give you gridlock, if you think that's a good slogan, then you should vote Republican. But I'm hoping you're not that cynical. I'm hoping you believe America can do better. If you care about creating jobs that families can live on, if you care about child care they can afford, if you care about equal pay for equal work, if you care about raising the minimum wage, then I need you not just to vote for Hillary, but I need you to vote up and down the ticket. I need you to vote for Patrick Murphy. I need you to vote for our members of Congress, people who are willing to roll up their sleeves and move this country forward. So, young people, let me say this one more time. I know you may be cynical sometimes and you may be fed up with politics. I know there's a lot of crazy stuff on TV and even crazier stuff on the internet. But you have the chance right now to reject a divisive, mean-spirited politics that would take us backwards. You have the chance right now to elect a woman, our first female president, who has spent her entire life moving this country forward. You have a chance to shape history, so don't let that chance slip away. You've got to vote. If you've been marching for criminal justice reform, that's great, but you got to vote for a president and a Congress who cares about reducing the pipeline from underfunded schools to overcrowded jails. If you've been marching for the environment, I hear you, but you got to have a president and a Congress who believe in science and will protect the progress we've made because they care about the children. If you've been marching for immigration reform, I've heard you, but you got to vote for a president and a Congress who doesn't consider immigrants rapists and criminals, but as people who love this country and are ready to contribute. Whatever issue you care about, you got to vote. This is where democracy happens. This is not where it ends, it's where it happens with your vote. Hillary needs your help. I need your help. America needs your help. Because your involvement is how progress is won. What you do is what's ultimately going to matter. And if you do everything you can, not just to vote yourselves, but to get your friends out there, your family, your cousins, your uncle, your neighbors, your co-workers, if you tell them this is the moment where America has to take a stand and decide what it is that we believe in and who we are, and we're not going to succumb to cynicism, we're not going to believe in fear, and instead we're going to lift up hope. If you want hope instead of fear, then you will elect Hillary Clinton as President of the United States and Patrick Murphy as Senator. And you will continue what we started 8 years ago. And America will continue on this amazing journey. This amazing journey in which every single person in this country has a chance to live out their dreams. God bless you, Florida. God bless you, the United States of America. Let's get to work.
said he liked it that, you know, so many Republican newspapers that endorsed her and things like that. But then he said, I felt she cared about me, and since I have a serious muscular disorder, I will not be able to make the most of my life unless people care about my abilities, not just my disabilities. Look, there are a lot of things I can say about this Stronger Together. One of the things I told Christina Hartman is that she wins this race for Congress, we need to figure out a way how to get Bill's khakis up and make him clothes again. This is one of 4 shirts that I own made in Reading, Pennsylvania. This watch, Detroit, Michigan. Yesterday I wore the most comfortable pair of shoes I have made in San Antonio. And I think it's amazing that so many people say they want Hillary's opponent to get elected since he makes everything somewhere else, including steel workers. You just lost 2 steel mills in Pennsylvania, right? And the latest round, we've lost 15,000 jobs in America because of illegal Chinese imports, not fair competition. And illegal has a very specific definition in trade law. It is steel that is shipped to you at a price lower than it costs the manufacturer to make it. So never mind lower Chinese wages, they're selling this steel for less than it costs them to make it, and that's unlawful. And the people that buy it know it because it's sold through dummy companies to disguise the fact that it comes from China. Her opponent built not 1, but 2 buildings with this. Now, that's what happens when you're mad. I just want to be mad. He just likes all the same people I do. We need to do this together. You know, when I met Hillary in law school, before we ever got out, she had already gone to South Texas to register Mexican Americans whose families had been in this country for decades and had been citizens for decades, but had been systematically shut out of the political system. She went to South Carolina to get African American teenage boys, I'm talking 13 and 14 years old, out of adult prisons because she knew their lives were going to be ruined. That's what she did for the Children's Defense Fund. Then right after we got out of law school, she went down to Alabama to one of these private academies that was claiming federal tax exemptions because they said we're just running a high-class public school here. And so she strolled in and pretended to be a housewife who had just moved down there, and she said, okay, I just want to know one thing. If I put my boy in this school, will he be in an all-white school, yes or no? And the guy said, absolutely, and she had him. And they lost their tax exemption, and they began the long road back to build an equal public school system. And then, this explains why she cares so much about disabilities. In the early 70s, the Congress finally said that children should be put in the least restrictive environment they can be in and learn. So she went to Massachusetts, of all places, to find out why they had so many children listed on the census rolls and they weren't in school. And she had this unbelievable experience. She walked up to one house that showed they had a child that wasn't in school. And there was a child in a wheelchair sitting on the porch. And they did all this research, she and her colleagues, to prove that these kids deserve the chance to be in school. In my first year as president, we had a kids' town hall meeting, and I met a young woman whose parents came here from Nicaragua. And she didn't have an immigration question. They were already citizens. She said she had cerebral palsy. She was in a wheelchair, but she could speak very well. She said, my twin sister here can't speak. She has to talk through a voice box that she operates on her wheelchair. But the law says that if she can learn, she should be in school too. And she looked at me and she said, I want you to put my sister in school. And Hillary was like a dog to the bone, man. So we started working on this. And it took us a year, but by the time we were in the 5th grade, I had pictures of them both in the same school in their class photo. Anastasia Somoza spoke at the Democratic Convention for Hillary. But she stayed with her sisters when she graduated from high school, and I spoke at her high school graduation. She couldn't speak, but she passed every test. And she did well. Why am I telling you this? We are stronger together. This is, you know, don't you dare give up on America. I had a friend of mine from Mexico the other day. I ran into him, and he said, I don't understand Americans give up on America. Any Mexican with any sense wants a very powerful American economy because it helps us keep our people home, because they can make a living. We're all doing better together. And he said, do your people know that since the crash, foreigners have put over $20 trillion into the American economy because they think America has the brightest future of any country on the face of the earth? You know, these people are not in the throwing their money away. I'm just telling you this because all we have to do is rebuild the middle class to give poor people a chance to work their way into it. All we have to do is stop denying climate change and spark an economic renaissance by figuring out how to change the way we consume and use energy. We'll create more jobs than we ever dreamed. All we have to do is to recognize that trickle-down economics doesn't work. Some corporations should have their taxes raised and some lower. For example, the biggest problem today is that the finance tail is wagging the economic dog in too many American companies. That is, their biggest shareholders first make sure their presidents are paid only on whether the stock price is higher today than it was a year ago. Why? Because they can get a lower tax rate in a year and a day when the capital gains system. Hillary said, I'm against that. I don't think we ought to let them do that in a year or a day. And if somebody closes a profitable operation in America, they ought to have to pay for it. Give back every last penny they ever got from any local, state, or national government source. And don't let them bring those products back here without paying a duty. But I favor lowering taxes on businesses that will share profits with their employees, that will train their employees to make them more worthy of higher pay, and a real big tax cut if you will invest in places that have been left out and left behind. We can do this, folks. So, that's my pitch. You got stronger together or no, we're not. You got real answers from somebody who's been a change maker all their life, or I like that guy, he's mad at the same people I am. You've got empowerment or rubbing salt in the wounds. You've got cooperation or endless conflict between us and them. This country is great because every last year we make us a little bigger and them a little smaller. You don't want to go back to the reverse direction. And she's gotten an unprecedented amount of support from Republican national security experts. From the Arizona Republican, biggest newspaper in Arizona, 126 years, just endorsed their first Democrat. The newspapers in Cincinnati and Columbus have never not endorsed a Democrat in 100 years. They just endorsed her. The Dallas Morning News, for goodness sake, the symbol of conservative republicanism, has not endorsed a Democrat in 75 years. They just endorsed her. And all these national security experts have told you what they think. They believe bridges are better than walls. And they believe it matters what you know. And they believe trying to keep us torn up and upset all the time is not a recipe for American success, and it violates everything that got all of you in this place tonight. So, I want to close with a happy thought. Not so long ago, I was asked to go to Appalachia, to Morehead State, the easternmost college in eastern Kentucky, at the base of the Appalachians, 50 miles from the West Virginia border, 40 miles from the Southwest Ohio border. Because they have a partnership with NASA in nanotechnology. And I spent $500 million a year of tax money to start that program. And here's what they're doing. Undergraduates from the heart of Appalachia are making for $1 million apiece, $8 million communication satellites, which just look like models of those big ones we all see on television. They cost $400 million. These will do a lot of the same work. Undergraduates are making these things. I held one in my hand. So I see this guy jamming all the mini computing power into a tiny little box. And I said, where's it going? He said, well, this one's not going on a satellite. We're fixing to put it on a rocket and send it to the International Space Station to see just how much this little stuff will do. I said, well, what's a container made out of? He said, tungsten. It does real well in outer space. I said, where'd you get it? He said, oh, I made it here with a 3D printer. And then I said goodbye to him, and he said, wait, Mr. President, he said, one more thing. He said, don't let him make fun of Hillary when she says we're going to put up 500 million solar panels in 4 years. He said, actually, I think she's a little low. And I said, why do you think that? He said, because in a couple of years, we'll be making them with 3D printers. They'll be just as good as anywhere in the world. They'll be cheap as dirt. We can put them everywhere. Power costs will drop. Jobs will flood back to America, and we'll all be free. Here's the point I'm trying to make. He may or may not be right on the details, but his head's in the right place. It never occurs to him when he gets up in the morning that he can't make tomorrow better than today. That's what these people over here that are part of the World War II generation, the Korean War, the Vietnam generation, that's what they lived on. That's what they fought for. That's what they came home to. So think about that. A friend of mine trying to jolly me up because I get it down every now and then, but all the poison that's been poured down people's throat. So I called him, and Hillary and I have loved this guy for more than 40 years. I said, just tell us something funny. He said, okay, if you don't want somebody to drive the truck off the cliff, do not give them the keys. So here's what I want to say to you. I want you to give Hillary the keys. She will not drive the truck off the cliff. She'll first go around back, open the door, and put every American on it, including the people who aren't for her. She's coming back for them too, because they deserve a chance to look at the mirror in the morning and think they can make tomorrow better than today. And once everybody gets on the truck, she'll drive it to the highest mountain she can find. That's what America needs. That's what's made America great. And that's what you can do in Pennsylvania. Thank you, and God bless you.
Oh, the multi section, not the. I'm just worried about that.